Special good afternoon and hello again, everybody, and welcome to the 2021 Bavarian Blast Parade and Bavarian Blast. It is a beautiful, gorgeous day in New Ulm, Minnesota, the greatest city in America to live in my humble opinion. And with me is Darla Gebhardt. I'm Mark Sandelman, and Darla, thanks for being here. I'm looking forward to working this parade with you because you bring so much. You would think there wouldn't be that much history in the parade, the floats that go by, and yet we seem to find things to talk about that are historical in nature. And normally with me here would be George Klotzbach. So let's take a moment and just remember George.
George was a great supporter of New Ulm. He was a wonderful historian, as you said, with a lot of his own flavor added. But George lived in New Ulm in an earlier time than you and I did, and George can remember unique things about New Ulm, and particularly downtown New Ulm, and things that you wouldn't even imagine would go on today. And I think one of the greatest things he did for the Brown County Historical Society was his bar-to-bar tour.
Oh!
And he took people downtown New Ulm and went from bar to bar, the few that are left, but reminisced about all of the comic stories that he had about all of the different businesses and bars in downtown New Ulm, and it was just hilarious.
George would admit to you and to us that he was a bit of a mischievous youth.
He absolutely was.
He probably wasn't the ideal teenager.
Well, George was an only child.
Yes.
And that alone gives you a different perspective of how important you are.
Well, that's true. Yes. But he regaled in some very, very funny stories. And I remember him telling me, and I think you said, no, I don't think that's true. But it was fun to listen to it. He said, yeah, Retzloff's was the Lutheran hardware store. And then there was another hardware store that was the Catholic hardware store.
Yeah, Catholic
yes,
name.
Yes.
And I can really believe that people would support businesses based on who the person was that owned it and probably what religion they were.
Yeah, border isn't the right word, but the loyalty was probably a little stronger then. And you had your Lutheran school, you had your Catholic school, and then you had your public school, and everybody thought they were right.
Oh, absolutely.
And now, my observation of New Ulm, there may have been a little bit of this in the past, and maybe a lot, I don't know, didn't live here, but my observation of New Ulm now is everybody gets along.
Well, some of those ideas have melted away over time. I think you could probably marry a Lutheran or a Catholic if you weren't Lutheran or Catholic
right.
And not have to move out of town.
Not be defrocked.
Oh, yes.
Oh.
And then you had the Turner Hall, which was a whole nother institution.
Yes. Yeah, and we're chuckling here a little bit, but Turner Hall is foundational to New Ulm.
Absolutely, yes. The Turners were here in 1856 and had a Turner Hall by 1858.
Yep.
And we still have a Turner Hall today, and one of the few in the United States that still operates out of its own building and owns one square block of land.
Oh,
so
my.
This is amazing. Our Turner Hall is really a historic spot and is on the National Register of Historic Places.
Well, when you look at New Ulm's history, and I don't know if you can start if you would start at the courthouse or if you'd start at Turner Hall, but you go 3 blocks in a row, and you've got Turner Hall, you've got city and county government, and then you've got school, public education.
And churches, and that's a Turner laid out town.
Oh.
I worked with a professor one time who was on a Fulbright scholarship, and he was studying Moravian villages. And he came to New Ulm because Moravian villages and Turner villages, Turners, are very similar in the way the towns are laid out.
Oh my.
And one of the things in New Ulm is that in a typical equality-based town, such as what a Turner member would believe in, is that your church and your state are on an equal level, and that is shown by having your courthouse and your churches and your schools all on the same level as they are on State Street.
Oh, fascinating.
That's
I had not heard that part of the history. So you've got Turner County Courthouse,
Right.
school, go a little farther, you got St. Paul's Lutheran,
Right.
go a little farther, you've got Holy Cathedral.
right. That's not by accident. That is by plan.
Huh.
And that's what makes us such a unique time.
Yes, yes. Did you know that? I didn't. I haven't read everything about New Ulm history.
Well, I wouldn't know it if it hadn't been for Professor René Vollmer, who spoke in New Ulm about the thesis he was working on.
The Fulbright Scholar?
Right.
Okay.
And I was just fascinated to hear him speak
Huh.
and tell me about that, because it was something I didn't know. I knew what Turnerism stood for, sound mind, sound body, and also equality and freedom of thought, but I did not know that Turner towns were laid out in such a manner. So there's another little piece of history.
Now you know why we have Darla Gebhardt here. You got your money's worth in these opening minutes. Well, we have a lot. Going through the list here,
yes.
We're going to be with each other for a while. So,
Yes, will be profound.
it'll be profound. Yes, yes.
And what we don't know, we can make up.
We'll make it up, and the phones aren't going to ring off the hook at the
No,
New
I'm
Cat
not
studio.
Mayor. They can't call me. They can call Terry Sweeney.
Call Terry
and say,
Sweeney,
"Get
right?
her off."
Oh, but Terry's in the parade somewhere, I'm sure.
Oh, we'll have to wait.
Yeah.
Good man.
Yep.
Going to be speaking, actually, Terry is going to be speaking at the Brown County Historical Society in August when we have Dakota History Week. And he has picked the most interesting topic, which I call cows, pigs, goats, horses, and oxen. He has done extensive research on a question that he had, was what happened to all of the animals that were brought into New Ulm during the Dakota War when we were barricaded for a 3-block area. And he started doing research in this and getting into census and real estate records. Your income tax records will tell how many head of oxen, hogs, cows,
sure,
horses
sure.
that people own. And so he has
Probate records might show it,
yes,
right?
Yes, and so he has done extensive research for the past year, and he is going to give a presentation on what he thinks New Ulm looked like during the Dakota War, when not only over 2,000 people were inside this 3-block area, but all of these cattle and animals, and that doesn't even count the cats and dogs.
Oh my.
Yeah, you can imagine what a predicament this made, and it again enters into one of the reasons why on August 25th New Ulm was evacuated, because you not only had wounded people, injured people, people who had passed away, people who were sick, but you had all of these livestock in town, and you couldn't support that, even from a health standpoint.
No, they would need food, they would need water.
Right. And so this is his speech, and I think it's going to be fantastic.
Oh, that will be very interesting. What a topic.
Yeah, what a topic.
Huh.
We're already sending out little feelers to him about other topics that we hope he might do research on and talk about.
Yeah, I mentioned Darla being one of the noted historians of New Ulm, Minnesota, but Terry Sweeney, as witty and funny as he is, and self-deprecating, and having a bit of a misspent youth himself, and he'll admit it. He's very knowledgeable.
Well, he has a degree in history.
Okay.
Yeah. And of course went into the tourism business, which is another branch of history, but he has a degree in history and geography, and he certainly used it well, I think, in his career.
And did his father have a bus line?
That, I believe, was his uncle, Buddy Sweeney.
Okay, yes.
Along with perhaps another brother. They owned a taxi company, I believe, and a bus line, and he did extensive research on that and presented at the New Ulm Public Library one evening on the history of the bus lines and the taxi companies in New Ulm, and it was fascinating.
Mm-hmm. Just making sure the mic is more directional to where her voice is being thrown. Wow. And then didn't he just do something a month ago at Brown County Historical Society on another topic. What was that on?
I believe
The grocery stores?
Yes, he had written.
And if George was here, he'd tell you, well, there was a Lutheran grocery store and a Catholic grocery store.
Well, our grocery store, mine in particular, was Nunn's grocery store. I love that little grocery store. And it was right on the corner of 3rd North and State. And so this was a grocery store, I think, that was used by both the Catholic Church and the Lutheran Church. When the people on Sunday morning were done with church, everybody would stop at Nunn's Grocery. They had their own meat department. And Art Nunn, who was the oldest of the 3 brothers, was the meat cutter. And then you had Charlie and Harry, who were twins. And I can remember going in there and they would say, "Hello, girlie. What can we do for you today?" Well, you know, we would get our little pack of Sen, which was a little licorice
Yes,
whip candy to take to school to put in our pencil trough so they couldn't be seen.
Yes.
But they also delivered groceries. And imagine people today thinking about groceries being delivered. My mother could call up Nuns, because she did not drive, and have groceries delivered, and either Charlie or Harry would come in their big green car and bring them in a bushel basket. And then my mother would unpack them. And I don't believe they charged for that service. And if you were really lucky, they might bring you a little bag of candy too.
If they knew Gurley was there.
Oh yeah, the girlies were there, yeah, the girlies. Me and my sister, the Vice Cup girls, as my grandpa called us, because we had this white blonde hair. That was, and so we did not think anything of having groceries delivered to the home. And now today, this is something that's starting up again, where Hy-Vee and Cashwise will deliver, and particularly took off during COVID.
Yes.
When people didn't want to enter the grocery store.
Just to give you an idea of how much this took off, and I'm speaking now for the Mankato Hy-Vee. So one of the employees at Aldi, I got to know almost all of them because there aren't many of them. And she said, well, and she grew up in Gibbon. She said, well, tomorrow's my last day. I said, oh, where are you going? And she goes, I'm going to be the department manager for the online, what do they call it at Hy-Vee? Aisles Online or something.
Yeah.
And she said, I'm going to be in charge of 100 people for online delivery. She's going to be in charge of 100 people at the Hy-Vee in Mankato. My point, Hy-Vee will give us a donation later on for all of this promotion. But my point is pivoting back to COVID and delivery, and something old is now something fashionable again, and something very common.
Yes, absolutely. When I was little, groceries were delivered, and I thought nothing of it. And then I used to look back on that and think, well, that's a bygone thing.
Yeah.
You know, and to think that they offered that service for free.
Yeah, and they'd get the cow. You know, some of the meat markets got them live and then slaughtered them right in the back of the meat market.
Yeah,
and
City Meat Market did that.
Yeah. And then the grocery stores probably got it already slaughtered and skinned or filleted or gutted and then cut the meat to your specifications.
Right. Yeah, you could go in and look at Art Nunn and tell him exactly what you wanted, and he would cut it just that way for you and wrap it up and hand it to you. And they had the little ice cream box, little freezer in the front, right where the kids could all hang in there and look and say, "Oh, I want a push-up."
Yeah,
I want a Cheerio. You don't have any of those things anymore.
And a shout out to Cashwise too. I mean, both Cashwise and Hy-Vee have great meat departments. So I want to give them a little plug. Well, Darla Gebhardt, the cannon went off at 12:30. It is 12:42
and the
unofficially.
Police car is coming
and
around the bend.
the police car and the honor guard are turning the corner. So we'll pause and wait for that.
Right. It'll certainly rise. I'll set it over here a little bit so she can get it out.
She doesn't get it. Well, I think we saw a name there you might recognize, Paul Wohan.
Yes, I was just seeing that Paul was on the float, and it's wonderful to think of all the service he gave his country.
And 100 years old.
100 years old, and I can proudly say that my grandson, Caden Schnur, is in boot camp in the Army, and it's very meaningful. My brother was in the Air Force. Many of my uncles fought in World War II.
So, Darla warned me before the parade started. She said, his first name again, Caden Cole.
Caden,
Caden typically calls every Sunday at 1 o'clock to Darla, so she may get a phone call, step away, and then you're stuck with me. Well, the first of many candy throws are going by.
Yes.
All right,
And
so
here comes the New Ulm Battery.
New Ulm Battery. Now, give us a little bit of history. We see them in the parade, but there's a little more significance here to the New Ulm Battery.
Well, the New Ulm Battery was formed in 1863, right after the Dakota War of 1862, as a civilian citizen soldiers company in order to protect the frontier should we ever come under attack again. And so they have been here since 1863, and their first captain was Richard Fisher, who was Dr. Kurt Bell's grandfather, only because he was the only person who had a Civil War uniform to put on.
And they're considered active, right?
Oh yes, they're active, yes, and they still travel all over Minnesota at least, and put on presentations.
And with horses comes,
Oh, yes, all kinds of excitement.
yeah, waste, fertilizer. It's fertilizer.
Fertilizer, and every once in a while the horses get a little uncooperative.
Yes.
Now, Pat Neef used to narrate this parade.
Oh,
And
okay.
one of the years that Pat Neef narrated,
Well, before we go on,
Yes.
Pat, we got to
here we
acknowledge
are,
former
Bob and
mayor
Cheryl
and Grand
Boyceman,
Marshal
yes.
Bob and Cheryl Boyceman. And going back to the other parades that I've done, one of the things I really enjoyed was, popping out and interviewing Bob. He
Yeah.
always had a great
Yes.
way to open the mic, how you doing, Mayor, or whatever.
Right.
And was a great ambassador for the city.
I think this is the Whittaky Band, and
Yep. And do they play in Branson or they play in Disneyland? Disney World?
Disney World. And
Yeah.
Dan Whittaky's grandpa, Dan Whittaky Sr., was my neighbor down on Garden Street.
Okay.
And his father was Fred Whittaky, who lived over, I believe, by Winthrop Given area.
Yeah. Well, there's
Yes.
Tom Whittaky up there,
Yeah.
and
Yep, I believe that'd be his brother. or his nephew.
my wife for many years worked at the Winthrop Pharmacy, owned by a Megan Whittaky. Now
Yep.
her married name is not Whittaky, but so you're right. So with parades comes with parades come starts and stops, and that's what we just experienced. So.
Yes.
And there he is. We were talking
There
about
he
Terry
is.
Sweeney earlier. There's Mayor Sweeney
Now,
and
if
his
you
lovely
had your
wife Ellie.
microphone, you could ask him about cows, pigs, chickens, and horses.
Oh. Hey, Bruce. Bruce Fraley, former chief of police in Winthrop, Minnesota, driving the convertible that Terry and Ellie are in.
Well, I think they made a good choice when they appointed Terry Sweeney mayor.
Yes,
An excellent mayor.
and I looked at that list of people that applied, and I
yeah.
thought I was surprised by some names.
Yeah,
But I looked at it and I go, oh, these are all high quality people.
right. And here we have the New Ulm Fire Department. I can say that the Brown County Historical Society has an exhibit on the 150 years of the fire department. So if anyone wants to come and learn more, come on in.
And we have 2 fire barns, one on this side of the railroad tracks and one on the Goosetown
Wow,
side.
the
So talk
Goosetown
about that a
Fire-
little
well,
bit.
The Goosetown Fire Department, I think I love it. It's
Yeah.
got a great big goose on it. But of course, when you think of the trains coming through, it's extremely important to have a firehouse on the opposite side of the tracks.
Well, when early in the city's history, you had a lot of train traffic,
Right.
and going over those streets, it'd be common for people not to be able to get through. So what happens if there's a fire in Goosetown
Or even a medical emergency.
or a medical emergency?
Yes.
And
I think that was something they often thought of Ridgeway on German, on 7th, being down below. That, with the tracks there, that you have to
Sure.
have underpasses and things so that you can get in and out even if there are trains.
so how did we get the slogan, Germans have more fun?
I think that could be something Terry Sweeney came up with.
I think it,
I really do. The chamber, I believe, came up with that.
yeah. And when you get to New Ulm for Oktoberfest, for Bachfest, for Bavarian Blast, and now Hermannfest is huge, you realize people have fun in this town.
Well, our class reunion for my class is going to be during Hermannfest, and they chose that specifically because we can all gather down at what I would have called West Side Park, at Herman Park, and watch the fireworks over Herman. And what could be more beautiful as an ending to a class reunion than fireworks?
Yeah. And you'll have the cannon fire in the valley.
Right. And here we have our Narren,
Oh.
which is another newer, shall you say, group that organized in the 80s, based on a group that came to Heritage Fest in Germany that wore these carved masks. And they took that idea, and now they're an important group.
And if you grew a kid, so we have 6 children, and we've been in Winthrop for 20 years. So they've kind of grown up here.
Yeah.
They don't like the Narren. They didn't grow up with it.
Right.
And the kids in New Ulm, they all get it and they love it.
Well, the Narren probably aren't quite as scary as the Vulcans that used to come by and rub black thing on your face.
Yeah, yeah.
And some children are frightened of Santa Claus the first time they see Santa. It doesn't look friendly.
Right. Or a clown.
Right, or a clown. And here we have the Hensel mention.
Well, there it is, Gertie the Goose.
Gertie the Goose. She must have come up from down
From
in
Goosetown.
And I love the Morels. Oh, we have Moritz, Max, and Maida. Believe it or not, I used to have to put one of those costumes on.
Were you a Narren?
No, I was.
Okay.
I was also mentioned at the museum.
I know Julie Krause is a Narren,
Yeah.
or has been.
Now the puppets, that's coming back into vogue too. Our little puppet wagon just went by.
Yep. Well, there it is.
And there we have
The Shell's Beer Kegs, and there's Jace, the brewmaster.
Wonderful. What beautiful horses.
Yeah.
And there's an institution that goes back to 1861.
And as I said before, and I know Ted and Jody are now retired, but they were such great caretakers of the brand. Yes, they owned the brewery, but they were just a great. They preserved the history, and they realized how important this is Shell's Brewery is the New Orleans.
Without the brand, there is no brewery.
Right.
And so
Right.
you have to take care and market your brand to continue to exist as a good brewery, and they're one of the finest.
Yes, but they realize how important that the brewery is to New Ulm and New Ulm is to the brewery.
Well, and they support you.
Yep. Love the Hobo Band.
It's the best band. I've always thought that would be a great presentation to do the complete history of the Hobo Band, which started after World War II, and bring it up to the present day, and then end the whole presentation with them playing.
Well, there's
It's just
another
fantastic.
project for Terry Sweeney.
I'll put that out to Terry.
Well, we got Fairfax Fire Department
Fairfax
carrying
royalty,
the
yes.
Fairfax royalty. Julie Schweiss.
There's a good New Orleans name.
Yep. Aubrey Swanson and Jasmine Moore.
Oh, Lord. That's another good old name.
Well, your maiden name was
Cordis.
Yeah, Cordis. That was a New Ulm name, right?
Oh, yes. They were stucco and plaster people. So if anyone has a mule head in their basement or on their chimney, that was their logo. Could have something to do with stubbornness, but I would not admit to that. But there are a lot of people that come into the museum and they ask, what is this logo we have in our basement? And so they would do an outline of a mule and put all the names of every worker that worked on the project and then the date.
Acreon Clark.
Oh, Acreon Clark. Well, that's it.
Tossing out something appropriate for the weather. Flavored ice.
Wonderful, wonderful care that Acreon Clark has given to my family over the years, but particularly to my mom.
Oh.
Excellent, excellent care for her always.
Yeah. So back to Cordis, and they bring in, people would bring in and say, what's this? And
They bring in photographs, and we could tell them this was something that the old Cordis Stucco and Plaster Company, it was their trademark. And they would put that trademark on the walls of the basements that they finished, and of course it was also, I suppose, a promotion for business. Because it did include the telephone number when telephones came into play. Call Herman Cordis, 477J.
Oh my.
Do you remember your old phone number?
No, St. Peter, 507-931-4140.
Oh, you're very modern. I'm
Yeah,
talking
yeah.
like EL45789.
Well, here's my first memory of a phone in St. Peter on the farm. We were on the Fort Road by Gustavus. My first memory was there was no dial. Okay, it was it was a black phone.
Number, please.
Yeah. And then we got a dial, but we were one of four on the party line.
Yes.
So we had our own ringtone.
Yep.
And then I don't know if my dad paid the extra 50 cents a month or what, or if they just started fading everybody out of party lines. I don't know if party lines are anywhere in the country
Well, I
anymore.
don't think so, but they were a predicament at times.
Oh yeah.
Oh, that
Party
is
lines were the first internet. Oh, by the way,
Beautiful.
JL Craft, what a great restoration. Yes.
That is, and to think also what Kraft does for New Ulm as an employer.
Every ounce, every puck, every loaf, every pound of Velveeta sold anywhere in this country is made in New Ulm, Minnesota.
Kraft has been around since the 1950s when the New Ulm Businessmen's Association was looking to bring big business into New Ulm, and Kraft was one of the
I think
first.
55 is when they opened, and
That's about it. And then,
Hobart Anderson,
yes, he worked there.
he was one of the first 12 employees, and there's Matt Hippie, the plant manager, just
Look
went
at
by.
that. We can have it for supper.
Yeah, we got free macaroni and cheese
Good
here at the
stuff.
table. That's one of the
Good stuff.
it's one of the fringe benefits of announcing.
Dane Stutchman.
Oh, there the guests. we did that Musicians of New Ulm, and I played Fez Fritchie.
Yes.
And that music just takes me back to all those great names. Harold Laffenbacher.
Terry Sweeney, our mayor, was Harold Leffel.
Harold Laffenbacher, yeah.
And he then did an entire research and historic presentation on Harold Leffel, and it was packed. A two-part thing, it was so good.
Yeah. Oh, interesting. I played Fez Fritchie.
Yeah,
And who else did we have there? We
Guy
had
DeLeo.
Guy DeLeo, played by his granddaughter, Misty.
Yes.
And she was perfect for
She
it.
was perfect.
Yeah.
That was a wonderful evening, but it's happy music.
Yeah. And
Happy music.
people, yeah, my wife's a New York City girl, by the way.
Oh,
And grew up, you mentioned Moravia before. She grew up in a Moravian church. And there aren't many. There aren't many.
No, there are not, but there was one in Brown County.
A Moravian church?
Yes, in Bashaw Township, and Paul Flammer, who was one of the first directors of the museum, was Moravian. He was raised Moravian, and tickled to death to find out we had a Moravian church.
Yeah, the Moravian church has kind of two Bible belts. One is Bensalem, Pennsylvania, and the other one is Winston-Salem, North Carolina. Paul Plates, good to see you. Hi, Danita, good friends of mine up here in New Ulm. So we got this 5-star towing going through. The Highway Patrol told Paul and Danita and their son Eric, they go, "Oh, you don't know how much we need you guys. We are so glad you opened up."
Yes.
They do, they'll pull semis out of the ditches and things. They'd have to wait for hours to get somebody from 2 hours away.
Well, what would you do with all the towing companies?
Yeah.
You're in trouble.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank God. Every business that opens up in Brown County is a godsend, right? Because we need business to go back up after COVID in particular.
Yes. Yeah.
Oh, and here we have J.M.R. Sugar. Oh, with our Concord Singers. They were founded in the 1930s.
Okay. Was it 39? That's where I want to put it, and I don't know why.
Close to that.
Okay.
Yeah, and Theodore Pelzel and some of the Dr. Kurt Bell were some charter members. And, at one time, strictly in German. It was like a German choral group. They branched
Everything
out.
was in German.
Right.
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
And I get to the different events, sometimes for the TV station, sometimes just I just enjoy going to them. And when the Concord Singers are there, and there's people that come from miles around.
Yes.
Miles. Oh, we just love hearing the Concord Singers.
Tech Trends just went by. What would we do without people to figure out our technology? I
Yeah.
have somebody coming to my
Yeah.
house tomorrow to figure my computer out again.
Well, that's why you're slow in responding to my emails.
That's right. Also, I rarely do email so much with text messaging. It's changing.
It has evolved.
It has evolved.
I remember municipal band.
I remember being at the old outdoor swimming pool and on a Monday night, and the municipal band would be playing in the bandstand. Just loved it.
Oh. So as a kid, you're in the pool but can hear the music.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Speaking of Turner Hall.
Look at Turner Hall. There we go. And
We don't have the gymnasts this year.
So excited
But we have gymnastics.
that they are going to move into the new gym center. And it's going to be Turner Gymnastics. They're merging with Nuaga.
Which is New Ulm Area Gymnastics Association.
They will become one group again, run by Turner Hall in the brand new gymnastics center, and we can have all kinds of gymnastic festivals to go to.
Oh, excellent. Because everybody kind of knows where the high schools are with, how good they are in football or basketball, and in this town, baseball. But New Ulm has an excellent reputation for a couple of sports maybe people don't pay attention to. One is hockey.
Right.
And I never thought southern Minnesota would be a hotbed of hockey. And you've got some, here in New Ulm and some other towns. But then gymnastics.
Right. And you know, they do not have men's gymnastics anymore in the schools. They run the girls' team, but it's run out in Flunuega in Toronto.
Yeah, so they'll compete on the high school level.
Because of all of the liability involved with gymnastics.
Another good corporate citizen, Spexis, most people don't know about them maybe. I think headquartered Montevideo, I think is their headquarters.
Okay.
They're in like 6 different communities, and New Ulm being one of them. Well, speaking of football, I see a MVL Charger. I see New Ulm Eagle football players. I see Cathedral football players.
And they'll be starting practice soon.
Yep. Our good friends, the Sleepy Eye Area Concertina Club.
Right. That's a newer group again that started up, and we have them play often at the Historical Society for events.
I saw Lenny Kroll, I saw Gene Brand, Bertrand. Gene Brand passed away 2 years ago, but retired school teacher Gene Bertrand is in, anyways.
Here is our Democratic contingency. I love the fact that he's wearing a face mask and promoting the fact that we should stay healthy and get vaccinated.
You guys do? Well, we have a little gap in the parade.
Yeah.
And I did what I do every year, Darla. I went from that corner down there, and I walked 1 block in front of Cathedral.
Yep.
And I asked people where they're from. And I don't know if the camera is on us, but there's my list for 1 city block. New Ulm is not on this list, Darla Gephardt.
Well, read a few names.
Well, we got Gibbon.
Oh, what a wonderful place, Gibbon.
Nice. And you know, Gibbon is a nice little town of what, 450 people. And I said, so I asked people, I go, are you from New Ulm? And they go, yes, no. Where are you from? And so one guy goes, Goosetown. Goosetown.
Good for him.
I got Winthrop, I got Arlington, I got Comfrey, all, towns close by. You would expect those. And then all of a sudden I get Monticello. And I go, Monticello is not easy to get to from here. You can work county roads through McLeod County and the Carver County. Work your way up there to get to Monticello.
Yeah.
It's not a straight shot. And I said, so why are you here? She goes, well, my husband grew up here. Ryan Portner is his name. His father is Craig, and his mother is a Baronet, and her name is Terry Portner. So a lot of history in those 2 names.
Those are
the Portner and Baronet names.
Holy Land names.
Yes.
From St. George.
That's funny. Another good corporate citizen, 3M. We got to acknowledge
what would we
them.
do without 3M?
Yeah.
Many of my family worked at 3M. And I worked there shortly on the 1,000-hour program once, which was great.
Yeah. So the 1,000-hour program, and I think at one point it was 900. 3M could hire you, and they had no obligation or commitment. I don't even think it hit them on unemployment if they said, okay, we're done.
Right.
You got your 1,000 hours. And it gave them a chance to look people over and see if they'd add them to the hiring pool. Yeah, the Housewives program. Yeah, so we got DNA Truckline, another great trucking firm and corporate citizen here in New Ulm. And earlier we had Shingle. And my in-laws live in the Charlotte area, and they drive to visit us in Winthrop. And we at one time before 20 years ago lived out in New Hampshire, and we'd bring the 5 kids and drive to Minnesota every year. And the number of Schugel trucks we would see on the road, it's just amazing how big they are.
Well, the trucking industry grew once the rail lines were pulled out. When you no longer had freight trains going through New Ulm and passenger trains, it all went to trucking and highway.
Mm-hmm. And Schugel does a lot with craft, and DNA does a lot with 3M. Christensen Farms out of Sleepy Eye, well, Essig more or less.
Oh, they are wonderful benefactors also to Brown County.
Oh. I have no musical talent, but if I was going to play anything, I think I'd want to do the drum.
Oh yeah, what child would want to do the drums?
Yeah, every child. Yeah, you're right.
My husband, Alan Gephardt, used to play trumpet in Bavarian High School, and his friend Bill McCleary played drums.
I'm trying to stay apolitical, Darla, but everybody should know that's Josh Wilkening, Michelle Wilkening's husband. Michelle used to be at the New Ulm Medical Center as a doctor, and about 3-4 years ago they moved into the cities, and it's my wife and our family, our children love Michelle, and we were just saddened to see her move.
Well, you never want to see good people leave the area.
No.
Never.
So Monticello, Ryan Portner, his mother was a baronet, Nicollet, of course, and then Waukesha, Wisconsin. And I said, Waukesha, what are you doing here? She graduated from Martin Luther College, and they just decided to come back. I don't know if there's something going on at the college, that maybe a reunion or something, but she wanted to come back.
A lot of people, college professors, have roots in Wisconsin.
Yes. Yeah, full disclosure, Darla and I are both members at St. Paul's Lutheran, which is connected to the college, and so we see a lot of the professors. Miss Nicola, Olivia Whitmore, Madeline Rosen, Paige Madsen.
I have no idea. I would doubt it.
If it's open, go, if you need to. Yeah, we're taking care of some logistics here. All right, we got a gap. Let's go back to the city. So Waukesha, Wisconsin. I thought, she might get farthest, the farthest award. Blue Earth, I was just in Fairmont, and they reminded me of the rivalry with Fairmont and the old South Central Conference. It was New Ulm, it was Blue Earth, it was Fairmont. I graduated in Hutchinson, it was Glencoe, Waseca. I said, it was just a brutal conference in sports. Everybody beat up on everybody. It was a bunch of farm kids. Good Thunder, and they were 150 years old yesterday in Good Thunder. Yes.
Oh my.
Good people in Good Thunder. It's their I guess a 150 is a sesquicentennial. So I'm walking this one block right in front of Cathedral. Mm-hmm. I find 4 people, they'll say North Mankato, and I know enough about North Mankato. Well, are you from Upper or Lower North? 4 people from Upper North, 5 from Upper North, and none of them were sitting near each other. None of them knew the other ones were here.
Lack of planning?
They didn't know each other. They just, I guess there's this highway to New Ulm, from Upper North Mankato. Winthrop, of course. Waconia. I said,
I have relatives there. I bet that's them.
Well, I mention you all the time. I go, well, Darla and I are going to do the parade. That's why I'm asking people. Because they're looking at me in stranger danger times. Today now you don't give any information away. I said, look, I don't need your name. I just want to know where you're from, because Darla and I get these dead spots. And he works for the city. And I said, so what's your connection to New Ulm? He says, I remember coming here as a child and looking at the Glockenspiel and thinking what a great town New Ulm is. And he said, I just wanted to come back and see New Ulm. during Bavarian Blast.
Yeah, I have a cousin who lives in Laconia, and then another cousin who is from Hamburg, Minnesota.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
And they're here for Bavarian Blast, but they might, a lot of people watch it out on the fest
Yeah.
grounds.
Hamburg, you got to drive a mile off the road
Yes.
to get to the town, but
Yeah.
right there is Emmanuel Lutheran Church
Yes.
in Hamburg, Minnesota.
Where my Uncle Harvey Muckentune lived on the farm right across.
So, Uncle Harvey Mockentune, any relation to the Mockentune Meat Market?
Oh, I'm sure they're all related
Yeah,
up there. Yep.
yeah, okay.
Yep.
Yeah, they used to make, my dad said, Mockentunes made, I think, blood sausage, and they used steel-cut oats. They didn't use open the canister and just pour out Quaker oats.
Well,
They used steel-cut.
Uncle Harvey made the best summer sausage I've ever had. What do we have here?
Got the Misfits.
That fellow playing the concertina, his name escapes me, but he has played in the museum and was tutoring a young boy to play the concertina. It was a fantastic afternoon of entertainment.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, sometimes we are able to insert the the Minnesota Music Hall of Fame, and sometimes
Yes.
we don't. But that's a good segue. Miss Sleepy Eye Queen, Leah Miller, Princesses McKenna Doctor and McKenna Strong. So.
Oh, beautiful dresses. Beautiful.
So I'm walking around asking where people are from, and occasionally somebody would say Sleepy, and I say, well, we've got to let people from Sleepy Eye in because you're probably married into New Ulm somewhere. They'd all laugh.
Oh my. Well, and Sleepy Eye was known by a different name at one time. It was called Loreno for a short period of time.
Laredo or
Loreno.
Loreno.
Yep. Loreno.
Okay.
Yep, there's a bit of trivia. Oh, the German Bohemians. Mr. Crash is driving. Now, George were here. George would be in his lederhosen.
George would be in his lederhosen.
Yes, and he would tell us all about the German Bohemian Heritage Society.
Yes.
But the tribute goes out to Bob Paulson for founding it, and Bob lives up in the cities.
Okay. But, George was a key player to keep it going and
Yes,
keep
he
it
was.
active and having I call it the Oktoberfest parade because it's during Oktoberfest weekend.
Yes.
But the more correct parade, or
German-American
the
Day.
German American Day
Yes.
parade, yeah.
Yes. Well, I think the most interesting thing about German Bohemians is their doodle song.
So we had, of course we have Essig, people from Essig.
Yeah.
But then I'm thinking Waukesha, Wisconsin, right? Because she's going to get the farthest. And then no, Ames, Iowa.
Ames, Iowa.
Yep. Her mom or her dad, it was a young girl, but her mom and dad were behind. One of them grew up here in New Orleans, but now live in Ames.
Peter and Paul Winninger. That's another band that I'm so happy to see they still are carrying on,
Yes.
and members of the family are, going into the business and keeping it going.
Yeah, we started to talk about some of the old groups. It was Whoopi John, and who else was New Ulm?
That's Rich, Dave Wagner.
Dave Wagner. Yeah. If Joe Wagner, Elmer Scheid. If Joe Wagner's watching, I shout out to Joe.
Yeah.
Babe's niece
Yes, because her father was Swede Wagner, who was also with the band.
was with the band,
Yep.
right? Yep. And I want to give a shout out to Mary McClellan. I don't know, I think she'll be watching.
Oh, wonderful.
Mary and Jill were good friends, and I became good friends with Mary and Jill.
Well, they were cousins.
Oh, that's right. That's
Yes,
right.
because Orville, which was Mary's mother, was Baben's sweet sister.
And I forget what Mary McClellan's nickname was. It had to do with a cigarette. A cigarette.
I won't.
Mary might get mad at me for telling this story, but it's too late. She shouldn't have told anybody about it.
That's right. It can be dangerous in New Orleans.
Yes. Because it'll be part of the parade history for years and years. You know, we got Lake Crystal, Lafayette, Wilmer, Hanska, Sanborn, Wells. We'll pause here because I want to get these guys in. Oh, the La Crosse Oktoberfest is here. Oh, excellent.
This is great.
Oh, nice. So 4 or 5 years ago, I'm going around to Oktoberfest here in Guam, and I'm interviewing people, and we put it up on the channel. And this, he's taller than me, and this guy's, they're from Milwaukee, and he said, yeah, this is our fourth Oktoberfest. And I said, really? He said, where'd you go? He said, well, we went to the one in Milwaukee. We did one near Minneapolis, and we did La Crosse. And now we're here in New Orleans. And he said, of the 4, he said New Orleans our favorite.
Wonderful.
So, Kent Menzel! Kent Menzel!
Taxi! How's that a taxi here? Got no cabs in New York? Here.
I think everybody knows Kent by now. One of the great voices, one of the great dancers in doing musicals at the State Street Theater stage. I'm guessing he's doing something with Little Shop of Horrors.
Going on,
Yeah. So, just a great performer. Enjoy being on the stage with him. So the Minnesota Over 60 band, I don't think is New Ulm centric. I think it's other musicians from southern
I think
Minnesota.
So, yeah. But I do see some of New Orleans musicians on the floor.
Okay.
That I saw Mary Morstead. So she also plays in the municipal band.
Okay. We had fun talking about Gibbon before, but one of the little gems up in Gibbon is Black's Antiques.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, I love antique shopping.
Yeah. If you haven't been there, they got great stuff. It's relatively priced very well. All right, so back to our cities. St. Charles. You might say, well, where's St. Charles? Well, you get between Rochester and La Crosse on I-90, and halfway there will be an exit to St. Charles.
Okay.
Yeah. St. James, Lamberton, but he sold the farm and now they live in New Ulm.
Well, that's a good thing.
Oh, and this is the other one George would talk about is the Becken Czech Fest. Becken is a little township over, where are they? Yeah, I want to put them north of Highway 7 out by Lake Lillian, out that way. I might be wrong. New X, Greyhounds.
Go Greyhounds. We are very, very blessed here to have parochial schools.
Well, my children all went through MBL, but I tell people that aren't familiar with New Ulm, I said, we got 3 great high schools.
Oh, yes.
We got a great public school, we got a great cathedral school, we got a great Lutheran school. All 3 of them are outstanding. If you decide to move here, you're going to have choices in education.
Well, we were raised at St. Paul's Lutheran.
Oh, a lot of kids were, I'm
1 through
surprised.
8.
And a lot of
1
them,
through 8.
if they didn't go to St. Paul's 1 through 8, the other half went to Cathedral 1 through 8.
Or St. Mary's.
Or St. Mary's.
Yeah. And then when we were young, we would have had a choice of going to high school up at the college.
You could have gone to Martin Luther, what
Yes.
they called Academy, MLA.
Yes.
And they just, there was it a 45th reunion of MLA that was in town a couple of weeks ago?
Oh, I
They were
did not know that.
some of them were at St. Paul's.
Yeah, that was a great education. It gave you a good grounding
Yes.
in life. No matter what you
Yep.
did later, you have
Yep.
that.
So Miller Sellner is going by now. Miller Sellner, everybody, all the farmers would know them as the international harvester
yes, international
dealers, and then it
harvester.
became Case IH. And my dad was a John Deere dealer in St. Peter. Speaking of Herman Fest, there is Herman.
Oh, here we have Herman.
There's Herman with his son Braxton. Hey,
Wonderful.
Bryce has been just a great Herman.
Yes,
He so looks the
absolutely.
part, and he
does.
gets it. He knows how to mingle with the people that are at the different events. But going back to Miller Sellner, so people go if they farm with red. Oh, your dad was a John Deere dealer. Boo! And I go, but wait a minute. The founder of Miller Sellner, Bud Miller, was married to my mother's aunt. So I've got a little bit of red in me. And then they calm down and they go, oh, okay, well maybe you're not so bad.
Maybe we'll let you.
Yeah.
Here's the Lions Club in New Orleans, and they do an awful lot for vision.
You know, I think one of the great things that they do is they have those collection boxes for eyeglasses.
Yes.
And I don't remember when I last read, but it's in the millions of eyeglasses that they've been able to dispense around the world. Yeah. I'm trying to do less sugar and less flour.
Oh,
So
but I love Mountain Dew.
I do too.
Yep, absolutely. I just get it in the smaller cans now and I feel better. But I got into that through my grandson.
Well, when I was a kid growing up, I think I was primarily a Coke buyer. My dad would give me a 25-cent allowance,
Yes, that's
and
what
I
we
was
got.
able to get 4 packs of baseball cards at a nickel each, and I was able to get a nickel Coke,
Yep.
and that's what I bought. Every now and then, I would try a different soda, and one of them would be Mountain Dew.
Yeah.
I would try the strawberry or the orange or the grape, but I'd always gravitate back to the Coke or the Royal Crown Cola.
Oh, and then there was Fresco.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yep. I
And
don't know.
7-Up. I loved 7-Up.
And 7-Up was huge when I was a
Yep,
kid. That
7-Up
was
was
the
huge.
number 2 soda after Coca-Cola.
My sister and I used to be able to get a 6-pack of pop once a week, and at that time they let you split it. So she got 3 bottles of Coke, and I got 3 bottles of 7-Up.
And now it's a throwback or a retro brand that you buy at Runnings. You can't, I mean, they go from number 2 in the country, and now they're just kind of an afterthought. Kind of like Dad's root beer. That was so my mom and Dad owned an A&W, so I was able to get fresh, original A&W root
You
beer.
got A&W root
I
beer
helped my
and
dad
a
make
fish
it.
sandwich.
Oh,
Oh my
Every-
God,
all
nothing
over-
like it.
all of our food was good.
On the way to Worthington, there's still an A&W.
Yes, there is.
There is.
Yes.
And we stopped in and had a fish sandwich and a root beer.
Yep, my dad taught me how to make the root beer. We made it at the A&W. He had the
Really?
A&W in Hutchinson, not the one here in New Orleans.
So you have a secret recipe?
Well, it was handmade back then.
Aha, you could go into business.
Yes, yes. So how did we get onto root? Oh, we got onto
Because we were talking about Mountain Dew, we went by.
and getting a quarter allowance of buying baseball cards. Anyway, so now here comes the big red or green equipment. And this is when I would normally say, well, my dad was a John Deere dealer in St. Peter. He sold out in '64. For you farmers who have some history back then, so they came out with the M, the John Deere M. And Dad went to his blockman. The blockman was the guy that called on him from the factory and would take his order. And he'd say, what are we doing making an M? An M was a small tractor. They were trying to get that Ford tractor business. Everybody had a small Ford utility tractor to run grain wagons into the elevator, or to do just nitnoing stuff.
Sure.
And they thought, well, we'll go get that business. He said, farms are getting.
Just
This is in
gonna reach down and pick
1964.
something up.
he said, farms are getting bigger. You got to start making
Yeah,
bigger
got
equipment.
bigger equipment.
And then he sold to Mankato, and I was talking to Kibble, Steve Kibble, about 10 years ago. We were talking. I said I was getting a donation or something for MBL, and I said, oh, by the way, Mankato Implement, which became Kibble Equipment. Speaking of St. Paul Lutheran, there's our church. Kibble, I said to Steve, I said, by the way, you guys bought Mankato Implement, bought my dad out in 1964. He said we did. He said I had no idea. Our records only go back to like 1977. I said, oh yeah. No, Dad was bought out, and then they moved everything out. But then that spring was the '65 flood.
Oh, I see. Anytime Fitness.
I think I see Jason Spurgeon walking through for St. Paul Lutheran. Did I see Jason? Anyways, Jason Spurgeon and Dinah. Dinah was at Thrive-In. Jason was what, assistant city planner?
I think you're right.
Housing permits would go through him.
Yep.
And he'd go in and inspect. Well, he took the manager position in Brookings, South Dakota. So in July they're going to move to South Dakota.
Oh, for heaven's sake, we're going to lose somebody.
Yeah.
Oh, look at that. Where is Lisa Besmer?
Lisa
Hey,
Besmer.
Lisa!
Yeah, you get both of us. The audience gets a 2 for 1.
Looking good. Now those are some women that can sell houses.
Oh, yeah, no moss grows under their feet. And they took that old gas station.
Yes.
And who was the owner of that?
That I cannot tell.
I'm
you, but
drawing a
they've
blank.
Really done a great job of redoing
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
And when they sell a historic house, Lisa used to be president of the Historical Society.
Yes,
she
she
would
did.
often call and ask for information and history on the house. And so we'll provide her with that. And so the new owners will realize something about the history of the house.
Speaking of the fatherland,
Ah, there you go.
we talked about that with, the Frantas, yeah.
Yes, they have a
Frantas
festival
are up
and
there.
great food.
Yeah.
And look at that, 1926 Model T. I'm sure my mother rode in one. When you could go and get a driver's license for a quarter at the courthouse, no test needed.
Well, and I kiddingly say this, but I think it's true. Back then, 12-year-old boys were driving the pickup out to the fields or back in, or driving, pulling a grain wagon into the elevator.
Well, Georgie Glotzbach would always tell the story that his father took him up to the courthouse and said to Otis Lewis, give the kid a driver's license. And Otis said, Linus, he's not old enough. He said, for heaven's sake, I have to drive to South Dakota, and I need him to help me drive. He said, give him a driver's license, and they did.
How old was he?
He was like 12 or 13.
Oh my goodness.
And he's on the highway driving.
Oh. Well, back then you didn't have 4 lanes like on 212.
No.
Or I was just on 60 heading to Fairmont.
Right.
And you were going through every little town and township.
Yeah. He also talked about giving Mrs. Benedict Green a ride to his mother's house, and he didn't even know how to drive.
We had South Point Credit Union,
Yes.
used to be St. Mary's, and Brian Service has been such a great,
he is a great
addition to
person,
this.
yes.
I mean, just, again, a great corporate citizen. So we got KUNJ
Yes.
coming up, and I don't know where we are in the list.
On the stone.
But Jim Bartles, I know I don't know if he's transitioned out as the general manager. I knew he was transitioning out.
Right.
But Jim Bartles was in the honor guard, and I wanted to acknowledge his service to our country, because what would New Ulm be without KUNJ?
I can't imagine.
Or the New Ulm Journal?
Right.
I mean, it's just amazing how significant and impactful a radio station
Right.
is
My mother had
to a
the
local
radio
community.
on all day long while she did her housework, and you would listen to everything. Learning who had passed away, what was going
Doris
on.
Aufderheide.
Doris Aufderheide with her recipes.
With her recipes.
Oh gosh. And then old time music playing.
Mm-hmm.
Until my brother came home from the Air Force and in the late 50s and turned on WDGY rock station.
63 AM, 630. And
Oh, the whole world changed.
yes, yeah. So I grew up first 11 years in St. Peter on the Fort Road, next 11 up in Hutchinson. And it was 830 WCCO.
Yes, yeah.
And somebody was telling me as I was walking through, asking where people are from, he said, yeah, one year CCO flew in their helicopter,
Yes.
and then we mounted it on a flatbed semi, and I drove the CCO helicopter through the parade.
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness.
And he was from another town.
Right.
Where did my
Labs.
list of towns go? 'Cause I haven't gotten through all of them. Oh, we got a lull here. I don't know if we're on camera, but
Yeah, the last.
where did I get to? Well, we got to Searles. That was the next one.
Well, what could be better than Searles?
Yep.
They have such good food.
The great burgers, yeah. St. George, of course.
Of course.
This woman goes, well, I'm from Miami.
Huh?
And I go, Miami, what are you doing here? Really, what are you
What is
doing
she
here?
doing here?
She grew up, where'd she grow up? She's a teacher, so she's got the summer off. Her mom and dad grew up here. She grew up here.
Oh, she grew up here. Wonderful.
And so she stays with mom and dad during the summer.
Oh, what fun.
But technically, she's from Miami. Well, then I see somebody else, and she goes, I'm from Chicago.
Hey, now that's got roots for New Orleans.
Yes,
the
they're-
founders of New
well,
Orleans were from
Turner.
Chicago.
The
No,
Turnberites?
Turners were from Cincinnati, but the Chicago Land
That's
Company,
it.
the first school.
That's it. That's the connection
Yeah,
to Chicago.
yeah,
The
yeah.
Chicago Land Company. That's right. So shout out to Amber from Chicago. And then we're talking about South Dakota with Jason Spurgeon. Brookings, South Dakota. Fairfax. Rapidan. And I'm not kidding you. The corner, in New Ulm, I go, well, are you on the Hy-Vee side or are you on the Cashway side? So the corner in front of Cathedral on the Hy-Vee side, walking one block toward Cashwise,
Yes.
that one block in front of Cathedral, that's where all these people were sitting.
All these people from all these different
All these
places.
different towns. I didn't walk through the whole parade route.
We couldn't find you. You say, where'd he go?
Where'd he go? Yeah. What Darla's referring to is we were going to go live at 12:30 with her and me, and it's 12:27, and they were probably
Yeah, they were panicking.
they were looking, or they were wondering, where's Mark? Where's Mark?
Light,
What would they have done?
It was a light panic.
Well, I kept telling them they would go on.
Yeah.
That caused a little panic.
Yeah.
Oh, this New Orleans
I just
bus lines?
and the bus is Bluebird Bus, and I just read the history of Bluebird Bus,
Really?
and I can't recall any of it.
All of the school children thinking about having to get on those buses soon and go back to school.
Yeah.
And wonderful that they can go to school
So I
and
lived.
not be being with Zoom.
I lived out on Highway 7 East in Hutch, so that's where the country kitchen is. And they go out about 4 or 5 miles, and we had 2 bus runs every single day. We had an early bus and we had a late bus. There was so many, and we had what we called a pusher. They were a little bit bigger. They didn't have that. It was a flat front end on the bus.
Yes.
We grew up calling them pushers, and they were bigger than the other buses, and we had 2 pushers, an early and a late, come out. There had to be something similar in New Orleans.
Well, New Orleans, had the school buses, but we also had the Greyhound bus lines coming twice a day. You could get a ride back to the cities twice a day, once in the morning when they came in and once in the evening when they came in and turned around and went back. Plus, in the old days, you had the trains that you could get to Mankato and St. Peter with. There's Jensen Motors.
Mm-hmm.
My brother-in-law works for Jensen's.
The Tunnel Car Wash, now my favorite car wash in town.
Yes.
No offense to any other car washes.
And also bought out Mayday Motors.
Bought out Mayday Motors, yep.
Oh, Total Lawn Care, mine sure needs it this year. It is hopeless.
Yeah.
Might have to call them.
Yeah, there was a while there, I don't think it mattered
No.
what religion we were. We were all praying for rain.
Yes, absolutely.
Oh my goodness.
Absolutely.
I think we staved off, or the good Lord staved off a disastrous harvest. We got it
yeah.
just in time.
My son works for the ethanol plant in Winthrop, and of course the corn crop is just vital, to keep that business going.
Yes.
They
Yeah.
watch that ever so closely. And here we have the Wandagog House.
Mm-hmm. And normally we would have a Wanda on the floor.
Wanda was born in 1893 and lived right on 3rd North in Washington. Wrote millions
At
of
the
hits.
Wandagog house?
Yeah,
She
did
grew up
that.
in that house?
She did. Well, she
Okay.
grew up for a couple of years on 3rd North.
1930 Model A. My dad restored a 28 Model A. And he was,
Oh, that's
wow.
gorgeous.
We're at the end.
We are at the end. It's all over.
Yeah, we got Miss Winthrop.
We do. Emily Keene. Now that's also a very
And Jay
good friend of
Jay
mine.
Gaffney was part of the royalty.
Well, now we have to wait till next year.
Well, yeah.
But there's Oktoberfest.
Well, there we go. We'll do Oktoberfest
Yeah,
together.
Oktoberfest.
Well, Darla Gephardt, what another great. The siren always indicates the end of the parade.
Right, and it thrills the children.
What a great weekend for Bavarian
Yes,
Blast.
yes. I hope that everything went terrific. That crowds were up.
They had to be.
Had to be. People
Yeah.
were looking for things to do.
Yeah, big shout out to Tom Furr. Thanks for all you do, Tom, with Bavarian Blast. And I know particularly with the music, he makes sure that
Yes.
there's good music coming in that people want to go to,
I think
and a variety of music.
He's also on the Herman
Yeah,
Herman
and
Society
he's-
board and helps, I think, put on that blast.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that one's a little easier to do. It's one day. They get, I
Yes.
think, 2 bands,
Yes,
and that's
yeah,
it. One
yeah.
plays in the morning and one plays in the afternoon or into the evening. And
Well, have to thank goodness that there are young people in New Ulm that want to keep the tradition going on. That started with Polka Days and has evolved into a Heritage Fest and into Bavarian Blast
yes,
and keeps on going.
yeah. And that Herman Fest is fairly new, and it started because of an anniversary for the statue, right?
Yep, statue went up in 1897, cornerstone in 1888.
Okay.
It took them a long time to build it because there were many Herman societies in the United States at that time, and they didn't particularly want to donate to a huge monument that they thought was going to go in the middle of nowhere.
Oh, yes.
They thought Chicago would be much
but-
better.
yeah,
Why not?
or
New York.
Cincinnati,
Yeah,
or something.
Cincinnati. But
Yeah, even
New
St.
Ulm?
or Minneapolis, St. Paul.
And now they know.
Now they know.
No, they know. The
They're
best
in-
place to have it.
They're in the best. Herman is residing in the best city in America,
That's
in my
right.
opinion.
In my opinion.
The best city to live in. And it did win the Realtor.com award for best small city that people that live there want to live in. Meaning the people that live here are very, very happy with living in New Ulm,
Is there
Minnesota.
anywhere else to live?
Well, I've been a few places, but I can't think of a better
I can't
place.
think
You
of
got
a better place.
like George said, there is so much to do here. If you're into history, you are in heaven.
Oh.
Because this place is rich in history.
Well, and as Georgie said, this is my town and my people. Oh, yes.
Well, I think New Cat, New Ulm Cable Access TV.
Oh, they want us to quit now?
Well, they might. They might. They might want to go home or go to the Bavarian Blast and enjoy things there.
Yes, right.
So,
Good food.
It's over at the
Alrighty.
fairgrounds, right?
Auf Wiedersehen.
Auf Wiedersehen, Darla. Good to see you again. Thanks for helping us out here.
Alrighty. See you next year.
Auf Wiedersehen.